Couldn't stitch the video, but here's the rundown. The video this comment was made on was talking about Naruto and particle physics. It basically said, did the Kamui dimension exist before Obito awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan? And the rationale was, when we observe quantum events, they collapse into other dimensions, meaning that perception is linked to the opening of other dimensions, which basically makes them the same thing. So I'm here to take a shit on a perfectly good cake and say particle physics doesn't work like that. But if Naruto did work the way particle physics works, it would be equally as cool. It is not that we open up pathways to other dimensions via our observation. In fact, there is no evidence that electrons or subatomic particles even take up space in higher dimensions. That's more of a string theory thing. I could talk about that some other time. But if we are going to look at Naruto through the lens of quantum physics, we could look at it two ways. The first is looking at certain things like the Kamui dimension as a potential, a quantum potential. You've heard of Schrodinger's cat, how it is basically alive and dead at the same time. Well, quantum potential is basically a way to say something could be in two states at the same time. That could be charge or spin or even existence. And again, this is a vast simplification, but bear with me. There are two major interpretations of quantum phenomena, the Copenhagen interpretation and the many worlds theory. The Copenhagen interpretation was basically how this video said: you observe something and the wave function collapses. If we take this interpretation, then there was always a potential for the Kamui dimension to exist, and when it became realized as something that was directly interacted with, it did exist. But I think it's a lot more interesting if you take the many worlds interpretation, which is my favorite interpretation. In this situation, the Kamui dimension basically exists in a superposition of existence and non-existence. It is always there, it's just not always necessarily on your timeline. In the timelines where Obito and Kakashi end up getting access to it, then yes, it exists. In other timelines, it either doesn't exist or exists waiting for someone else to gain access to it. Which means it's not necessarily made, it's just lying in wait for someone. But since in other universes, Obito may have never existed, other people, other characters may have gained access to it. And these several different many timeline versions of the same dimension basically lay on top of each other in quantum space. Many universes all occupying the same space that can never interact with each other. Of course, the nature of this space is extra-dimensional to begin with. It itself is a quantum space layered on top of our normal space-time. Which means under the many worlds interpretation, there could be a jutsu that takes you to another timeline where you don't exist. And that's Kamui's dimension in Naruto by way of particle physics.